Hello everybody, welcome back. Thank you for being here throughout this series on tax basics for new taxpayers. Over the course of this series, we talked about deciphering pay stubs, the structure of a tax return, how it all works, estimating tax, and fixing withholding. And today we're sweeping through to pick up some questions that have come in along the way. So if there was anything that I didn't cover today, still feel free to reach out and get those questions in. We'll do our best to get them answered. So the first question from the first session had to do with a couple of pay stub questions. One was, what is Washington WC on my pay stub? We talked about that a number of the deductions on pay stubs display differently based on the payroll system. In this case, Washington WC is workers' comp. It is premium for Washington's labor and industries. So if you get injured on the job, that helps pay benefits to you when you can't work. The other question was, what is the Social Security deduction for? That one pays into the federal Social Security system so that theoretically when you retire, you will receive a retirement benefit from Social Security. It's not just for retirement though. If you become disabled, you could receive benefits for that as well. So not just for retirement. The next questions were about sick leave, and specifically, do sick leave hours go away? So we had talked about the fact that in Washington state, employers are required to provide a certain amount of sick leave to their employees. Specifically, they're required to provide at least 1 hour of sick leave for every 40 hours that you have worked. So if you work a 40-hour work week, you've accrued an hour of sick leave that you're able to take. The question about whether sick leave hours go away really depends on your employee handbook for your company. Some employers may have a more generous policy. As far as Washington State's minimum is concerned, your employer is required to allow you to carry over 40 hours of sick leave. So if you get to December 31st and you have 42 hours of sick leave available and they are going by the state minimum, they will carry over 40 hours and you will lose those other 2 excess hours. If you have accumulated 38 hours at the end of the year, that full 38 hours will carry forward. Now, those are a minimum, so every employer has the right to have a different policy as long as they meet the minimum. So they may say you can carry up to 80 hours forward. That's between you and the employer, but be sure to read your employee handbook. So tax return questions. What if I didn't include a W-2? I filed my tax return with my W-2 and forgot I had another W-2 from a prior employer. Can I just add that second W-2 to next year? Can I file a separate tax return? And the answer is you amend the tax return that you filed. So to amend it means to correct it. So you would, if you used TurboTax, for example, you would open that tax return again and tell TurboTax you need to file an amendment, and then you add in that other W-2 and basically resubmit. Chances are good you may end up owing on that, and it's something that you probably don't want to do immediately. So if you filed your 2023 tax return today and realized tomorrow that you were missing a W-2, I would wait and not file an amendment until the IRS has processed your original return and you've received your refund if there was one that you were going to receive before you file the amendment, just to keep the IRS's systems from getting confused. You do need to file that amendment though. If you don't, you may get a letter from the IRS sometime in the next year that says, hey, you forgot something. Here's what we think the difference is. And with those letters, sometimes the IRS is right, sometimes the IRS is not. So definitely good to have that looked at by a tax professional. My parents said they're claiming me. What does that mean? And do I still have to file? So if you are under age 24 and still a full-time student, chances are good that your parents are still claiming you as a dependent on their tax return. What that means for you is that you still file if you have enough income to be required to file, or if you have withholding that you'd like to get a refund back for. But you mark a box on your tax filing that says, I am claimed as a dependent. It doesn't change the bottom line of your tax return with current tax law, but it does give your parents an additional deduction for you. It also means that if you are in school and paying tuition, that they are the ones that should be claiming the credit for your education, for your tuition and such, even if you are the one that paid it. If you are a dependent, the credit goes on their tax return, not yours. But yes, you still need to file if you had income. Where's my refund is always a popular question. If you go to irs.gov, there is a link that asks essentially, where's my refund? Get to refund status. When you click it, it looks something like this. Where's my refund? With your social security number, your filing status, so single presumably, and the refund amount from your tax return. You can look that up, and it will let you know if they have issued it, if it's direct deposit, if they've issued it, if it's a check, so you can expect when you can expect that money to be there. irs.gov is a huge resource. We talked a bit last week about changing withholding, but I did not show a W-4, so I figured I should maybe add a little bit more context. We talked about making some changes on your W-4 in order to increase withholding. And one thing to note is that depending on your employer's payroll system, it may look like this. This is the official form from the IRS, but it may look vastly different. The bottom line should be the same, that it should be asking you for your filing status, whether you're filing single or married. We talked about that if you are actually married, you can still mark the single box to have more withholding come out. We talked about this 2C checkbox, multiple jobs or spouse works, that there is this checkbox on line C, that if there are 2 jobs, you may check this box. Just as a reminder, we talked about it doesn't matter if you actually have more than 1 job or more than 2 jobs. It doesn't matter if you're married. Marking this checkbox is just going to increase the withholding coming out of each paycheck, which is achieving the result that you may want. This does not go to the IRS. It merely goes into the payroll system to pull a number of withholding off of the IRS tables. It doesn't have to relate to anything. Further down the W-4, there are additional lines, and they can be a bit confusing. And the bottom line, for the purposes of our 4-week session here, is that you should not put a number on any of these lines in most cases, unless you want a specific extra amount of withholding per check. So we had talked about this one with the spreadsheet, that if you were going to be not have enough withholding because you've got a side hustle or something, that you could have out of your wages an additional amount per paycheck come out of your check. So you can use that box to manipulate your withholding. I'm going to include in the description down below the link again to that spreadsheet in case you missed it last week. This is also part of a playlist, and I'm going to link that above so that you can go back and catch any of the last 3 sessions if you missed one. Let me know if there are any questions, if there's anything that we should have included in this series that maybe were missed, or any questions that you run into in going back and reviewing them. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.